Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I've just managed to memorize around up to 60 lines, we would say. So, and I thought I'll just quickly make this video to 60 lines from Shatibiyyah, from the poem of Shatibiyyah, which is this one here. The actual name is Hifdh al-Amani wa Wajh al-Tahani by Imam al-Shatibi. And I thought I'll just make this video to, perhaps it'll benefit some of you in terms of tips on memorizing, and something I'll say might just click and might just help you in terms of how you can memorize. And this information or this advice or whatever you want to call it can help with your memorization of the Holy Quran as well. I just want to make it very clear that this video is not to show off at all that, oh look, wow, I memorized 60 lines or whatever you want to say. 60 lines is clickbait. It's probably between 50 and 60, but we have to utilize clickbait and the rest of it sometimes. But it's not to show off at all. I'm not here to show off, and the reason being is because I'm actually, there's nothing to show off. There's nothing for me to show off about. I'm actually quite behind in my memorizing compared to the rest of the class, and this is why I had to do this mad, crazy mission to catch up with the rest of the class. Why? Because we have an exam tomorrow, so the teacher is going to listen to from line 1, bait 1. So in poetry, in Islamic poetry, it's known as bait and abiyat, which is lines of poetry. So tomorrow we have an exam, a listening exam, in the sense that the teacher will listen to us from line 1, bait 1, to the end of Babul Idgham al-Kabir, which is till line 131. Babul Idgham al-Kabir, line 131. So 131 lines. The rest of the class, mashallah, tabarakallah, Allahumma barik lahum, they're ahead of me, and this is why I had to memorize all these lines, and I still need to memorize probably 10 more tomorrow. I need to memorize the last Babul Idgham al-Kabir from 117 to 131. I need to do that, but I'm hoping I don't get asked anything from that bit. So I'm taking a bit of a risk. You know how it is. Sometimes these risks have to be taken. Obviously, at some point I'll have to memorize it, but I'm hoping my teacher does not ask me from that bit. These things have to be done sometimes. So yeah, and actually asked my teacher for an extension, 1 week extension. And this is what I'm saying, is I'm not here to show off. Anyways, a few things that I've had to do is, number one is, if you really want to achieve something, then you have to make sacrifice, and sometimes you have to do these extreme things to get ahead of the game, or in my case, to get to the game. But if you want to do something extreme, then you have to take extreme action as well. So for example, over the last 2 days, I made sure I slept early, a lot earlier than usual, and I made sure I woke up early as well. So the sleeping early was more about, I usually generally wake up a bit early, but the sleeping early was more to have the full rest, because I don't think many people understand and realize that that when it comes to hifdh, when it comes to memorizing, when it comes to memorization, rest is extremely important, because this is the time where your mind digests and stores all the information. And this is why your sleep routine has to be very good. If you're not sleeping enough, then it's hard to retain. So for retaining purposes, it's very important to have good sleep routine. So if you're a student of hifdh, or you're memorizing poetry, lines of poetry, as a student of knowledge, then it's important to have your sleep in place. So my sleep generally is not enough, and it's not good. It's not good enough. But I made sure that I knew Friday, Saturday, November 2023. I did this. I knew I was going to do this. It's a crazy mission, right? It's a crazy mission, and but I knew I was going to do this, so I made sure I slept early and I woke up early. And as I say, if you want to achieve something extra and something extraordinary, then you have to take extraordinary action. So for example, my time spent on my phone was drastically reduced. So, for hours, I didn't have my phone with me. I left it in the car outside, either in the car, or or the battery was dead and I just left it. I didn't charge it. And I use the mobile hotspot for my laptop, so that was fine as well. So I think it's very important. It's necessary if you want to do hifdh, whether you try to, memorize loads of lines like I did, or just general day-to-day hifdh. You cannot have your phone next to you. You cannot have your phone next to you if you want to memorize quickly. See, the thing is, if you have your phone next to you and you're memorizing, yes, at some point you will get it, but you're taking double and triple the time. So you have to keep your phone away. And then, you just, end of the day, if you end up taking half the time to memorize because you didn't have your phone, that other time you can then spend on your phone. Spending too much time on your phone is a different story, which is not, it should be managed. A lot of people spend too much time on their phone. But for hifdh students, so whether you're 10, 11, 14, 16, 20, 30, 40, whatever age, if you have your phone next to you and you're trying to memorize, it's not going to happen. It's going to be very difficult. And I must say that even with these with this extreme action of making sure I won't with my phone for many hours, I still managed to get some work done. So my other work, I still managed to work on my business stuff. So, but again, what I had to do there is, instead of just having any time, I said, look, 3 to 4 hours this time, I'm not going to be thinking of Shatibiyyah. I'm going to do my work. And then I also, 3 hours, I took my daughters out, myself and my daughters, I took them to the park with some other brothers and their kids for 3 hours. And then I went to eat today as well with family. So this important, the reason I mentioned this is it's important that you have to take breaks as well. So it's not good enough. So, like when I thought of this plan, I was thinking that whole day I'm going to memorize, but you have to be realistic, and you have to take regular breaks, and you have to switch off completely. So you have to have, that morning, few hours here, then few hours. It has to be like, it's impossible for you to be switched on the whole day. So you have to take breaks and still do whatever you have to do. Another point that I want to make is that it's important to constantly be making dua, because whether you're memorizing the Quran, which is one of the greatest rewards, one of the greatest things you can accomplish, or memorizing abiyat, which are related to sciences of the religion, and this is related to the Quran, which is a very noble thing that we are trying to do here as well. Alhamdulillah, we must constantly check our intentions, that we're spending all this time. I can be sleeping if I wanted to, or I can be doing something else. I can be watching something, I don't know, whatever. So we must make dua. We must make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, number one, He accepts our time and efforts from us. And number two, we must constantly be making dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for us. Because without help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything can become very difficult. And with His help, everything can become very easy. So that's another key piece of advice that I would give to all of you that are memorizing, is that you must constantly make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He's in control over all things. Wallahu ala kulli shay'in qadir. So as I say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do what He wants. So He can make it very, very easy for you. So you must constantly be renewing your intention and praying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts the time and effort from you, and that He makes it easier and easier for you. So yeah, that's another point. Another point that I want to make is in terms of style of memorizing. 50 to 60 lines is a lot, alhamdulillah. So there must be people out there, a few people out there, that can probably memorize more than that. But I think 50 to 60 lines is a massive achievement. I would say 50 fresh new lines. I had to start reading them from the start and memorizing them, and then 10 were like, I had started them, sort of thing. But one thing that can quite easily happen, which will happen to most of you, is that when you're memorizing, so you're memorizing, let's just say, for example, ومنهن للكوفي ثاء مثلث وستة بالخاء ليس بأغفلا عنيت الأولى أثبتهم بعد نافع وكوف وشام دار ليس مغفلا. So you're memorizing, you've read it, you've repeated so many times, and then you're still making mistakes. Learn from your mistakes, don't get frustrated by them. That's a key piece of advice. Learn from your mistakes when you're memorizing, but don't get frustrated by them, because that's the natural process, okay? And when you get frustrated, you're stressing or you're overburdening your mind. Just, you make the mistake, then come round again. But be very calm. When you're memorizing, be very calm. If you're getting frustrated, it's going to make things more difficult. And it comes back to the phone comment that I made, where if you have your phone with you and you're memorizing, it's going to take double the time. The same thing here is when you're memorizing and you're constantly being frustrated and agitated, again, your mind is not at ease, therefore it will take double the time. And you need to learn about the mind and how the mind is, the brain and the mind. These, we've been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's the best of creators, and He's created us in the best of manners. And the mind is a beautiful thing, like when you start looking into and reading how the mind works, you start to realize how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us. And it's such that, and it comes back to the point again where I said, when you have to rest to retain. And that's my advice to you, that, if you're constantly making mistakes, then you take a break and you sleep on it. And the next morning, I guarantee you will have memorized, or, within the first 5 minutes, you'll end up memorizing. So that was a lot of what I did yesterday, which is Friday. Was the groundwork, constantly repeating, looking in. And I always look in and read with my fingers. So I look in and read with my finger first, and I stare at the words. So وَذُو النَّقْطِ شِينٌ لِلْكِسَاءِ وَحَمْزَةٍ وَقُلْ فِيهِمَا مَعْ شُعْبَةٍ صُحْبَةٌ تَلَى. I look inside and I concentrate and I stare at the words, because this is the first step. Because if you just start reading quickly and again you're overburdening your mind and you're in a rush, then it's not going to help. Rather, and it's not going to help in terms of you might make mistakes unnecessarily, like you might be reading something wrong, or the i'rab, instead of say wa hamzatin, you say wa hamzatun. You might say a word wrong in and of itself. And therefore, it's important that you take your time to read properly first, and then you keep repeating, and then you start looking out, and then the next day you'll know it. So bottom line is constant repetition, and constant repetition means you need to give a lot of time. As I say, I've written here, you must take breaks and have fixed time. You must have fixed time. So you must take breaks as well, regular breaks. As I said, I did a lot of other things during these 2 days. I've still got 10 lines remaining, about 10 lines. No, we said, it's the last bit. I still need to memorize it, but let's see. And another thing is that, at one point I've written here, don't mind if you're rocking, because at one point I was I was into it. And just remember also that your mind starts focusing properly after 15-20 minutes. So the first 15-20 minutes, your mind is not there. So don't distract yourself for the first 15-20 minutes, and then after that is when your mind really starts absorbing things. But if you're rocking like this, some people say the Jews rock like this, so therefore we shouldn't rock like this. But for concentration purposes and focus and seriousness purposes, it's fine. And also, I want to say that this is another reason why مسابقات لحفظ القرآن and لحفظ القرآن الكريم in this context, an exam, so studying with a school and with a teacher, is extremely important, because it forces you to do these kind of things. It forces you to do muraja. It forces you to make your hifdh stronger. I can hand on heart say that my hifdh is extremely strong since 10 years ago, more than 10 years now, because before I went and participated in the Dubai competition and some other competitions around 2011, I must have read the Quran so many times, 5 juz a day. And because the only reason at the age of 18 I'm reading 5 juz a day is because of the competition, and I don't want to look like a fool. It's not because I want to, like as an 18-year-old, you want to chill, you want to go out, you want to do this, but it's because I didn't want to look like a fool, and therefore I did these extreme. So sometimes to achieve things, you have to be extreme. So no matter what people say, do everything in balance and the rest of it. Sometimes you have to do the extreme thing, like what I've done in these last 2 days, and what I did when I went to the Musabaqat. I used to read the Quran many, many times, constantly, 5 juz a day, 7 juz a day sometimes. And because of that, my hifdh is extremely strong, and I've never forgotten it since then, even though there's been a few years where my muraja hasn't been very good. And this is why musabaqat are important. So if you're listening to this and you're younger, whatever age, try to enter the musabaqat, and this will help you in strengthening your hifdh, and always keep your intention secure and getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately. And same goes for exams. Tomorrow in front of my class, I don't want to look like a fool. So that has been one of my main motivations, that and I also want to impress my teacher, because he gave the extra week to the class. One of the reasons is because of my request. I'm pretty sure other students may have requested as well, but I definitely requested for an extension of 1 week, and alhamdulillah he accepted it. So I don't want to let him down, don't want to look like a fool. So anyways, I hope you learned something from this video in terms of how to memorize. And as I say, I'll repeat again, sometimes one must do extreme things to achieve something extraordinary. And read about how the mind works. Make sure you rest well if you want to retain, and don't get frustrated by your mistakes. نسأل الله القبول والإخلاص. Pray for me, pray for my family, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts from us. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.